A dominating performance out of Iowa's Lucy Olsen, and why this Iowa women's basketball team can make another surprising run come this March. All today, Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. Just takes you a moment and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. 81-66, Iowa runs away from Nebraska and gets the win, running their record now to 17-7 on the season. More importantly, 5 consecutive victories for the Women Hawks after the 5 straight losses before that. So you look at it, 5-5 in their last 10, pretty average. We know it's a whole lot more different than that. The conversation starts from last night. And once again, some good defense. We're going to get into that. Once again, good three-point shooting. But it's the play of Lucy Olsen. Lucy Olsen goes off last night, a Iowa career high, 32 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, had a couple of steals in the game. She came out hot, and she continued out throughout the course of the game. And in a night where there were a couple of players that struggled a little bit, certainly Hannah Stuelke among them offensively, it was the play of Lucy Olsen that got them going. And then anytime that there was any kind of comeback, she had a response and just a tremendous effort out of the Villanova transfer. You know, Lucy Olsen, knew she came in with a lot of accolades. You looked at her as a player at Villanova. She had free reign. She was able to do a lot. And that's why she was in the top 3 in scoring in the country, as we talked about after during the USC game. You had the top 3 scorers in all women's college basketball a year ago there. Caitlin Clark, Juju Watkins, and Lucy Olsen. But what we've seen here recently out of Lucy Olsen is, as her play has improved, and it's gone up immensely after that 5-game losing streak, you're seeing what it means to this team. This is not an elite level offensive team that we've seen recently. And when you have Caitlin Clark on your team, you're going to be an elite offensive team. This team has taken a step back from that. But Lucy Olsen, during the 5-game losing streak, some numbers from Rob Howe: 12 points, shot 33% from the floor, 33% from the three-point line. How about this? Just 54% from the free throw line, 6 of 11, 4.2 assists, and nearly 3.5 turnovers per game. On the other side, now during the 5-game winning streak, Lucy Olsen has gone from 12 points per game up to 22. She's shooting 54% from the floor, 47% from the three-point line. And remember, Lucy Olsen, three-point shooting, that's not something that we got. It was the mid-range game. That was kind of what was talked about so much when Lucy Olsen committed to the Hawkeyes. Now shooting 72% from the free throw line, 6.5 assists per game. The turnovers remain the same, and steals have gone up a little bit. That's the Lucy Olsen that Iowa needs. Again, they need her offense. But here's a reason that I believe that this Iowa women's basketball team can make a surprising run. I think it was Charlie Crean at ESPN, his bracketology here on Tuesday morning had Iowa up to a number 9 seed. So he talked about during the losing streak, they're on the bubble, maybe they're playing their way off their bubble, that what they need to do to be safely in the NCAA tournament. And it's been mission accomplished. We talked about these 2 road games, Minnesota and Nebraska back-to-back. Have to find a way to at least get a split. They get the sweep. Now you kind of look forward, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on what this still could be. You had to beat the tomato cans, had to get the easy victories that they still have, and another one's going to be coming up in their next matchup against Rutgers. But with this squad and what they've been able to do and accomplish, they're safely off the bubble. I mean, bubble talk at this point is ridiculous. They've moved past that. Still have work to do. Can't afford losing to Rutgers, can't lose to Wisconsin, but they're in good shape now. I will tell you, though, looking at their metrics and looking at their numbers, I'm a little bit surprised that they're a projected 9 seed, because when you look at them in their totality, take away the winning streak, take away the losing streak, you just look at the resume as a whole. And that's what the NCAA committee is supposed to do. They don't, but that is what they're supposed to do. Look at it in its totality. Last 10 games is not a metric anymore. It hasn't been a metric for over 15 years now in college basketball as it pertains to the NCAA tournament. And when you look at Iowa's resume compared to some of the other teams kind of in the similar ilk, Iowa should be pushing more for like a 6 seed, not in that 8-9 game, because, well, you know what the 8-9 game leads to. If you get a win, you're taking on one of the number ones. And those programs, the South Carolinas, are absolute monsters, and you want to stay away from that. So I was up to now 29th in the net rankings. All right. That put them in line, just strictly looking at that, at about a 7 seed. You also couple it with what they did strength of schedule wise. Strength of schedule matters. 8th in the country right now in strength of schedule. Their non-conference strength of schedule, 22nd. They've gone out and challenged themselves. Another big talking point during the losing streak was Iowa at that point didn't have a quad one victory. Now they have 3 quad one victories, and if they do more, that number is going to continue to stack up higher and higher. This 5-game winning streak, the quality of victory that they have against USC, as good as anybody in the similar realm as Iowa does. The road victories now that they picked up back-to-back, Iowa's in really good shape. So if we look at the final 5 games of the regular season, Rutgers on Thursday night, they go to Ohio State next Monday. They get UCLA then the following Sunday. So a nice break in there after the matchup against the Buckeyes before number 1 UCLA makes their way to Carver Hawkeye Arena on Sunday, February 23rd. Then wrap up at Michigan and home for Wisconsin. Let's be crazy here. Let's say Iowa, of course, beats Rutgers in Wisconsin. That middle stretch at Ohio State, UCLA, at Michigan. If they go 2-3 there, and make a run in the Big Ten tournament, we could really be talking about this team back in the top 25 and maybe even pushing for a top 4 seed and hosting the first and second round. It's still a long ways to go, and it's still a lot of work to be done. We're talking about, at minimum, getting a top 10 win either at Ohio State or home against UCLA, coupled with then a win against Michigan. That's what we're talking about to get there, and then still work that needs to be done in the Big Ten tournament. It's still a long path, but now it's not outside the realm of possibility. And the way this team is playing is making that a reality. So what is different about this team? One thing that we've talked about a ton is what they are in the defensive end of the floor. And the defense that we've seen out of the squad has been different than what we saw in the 4 years previous. So Iowa now is up to 22nd in the country in defensive efficiency. They're 25th in the country offensively, 22nd in defensive efficiency. They've gone up huge. And outside of the Northwestern game here over these last 5 games during the 5-game winning streak, you look at the defensive numbers, just absolutely elite. This is an elite level defense for what we're used to from Iowa. And that's what changes the equation, because this team, yes, there's going to be matchups that are going to be difficult, but if they keep defending at this level, look out. This team can do some incredible things. And that's one thing that I look at, looking at the defensive efficiency numbers for the players individually. Your best defensive players, Sydney Fulter, Hannah Stolke, what you get out of Addison O'Grady, and of course, Kylie Feuerbach, her on-ball defending. And as we go back to last night, the win against Nebraska, those little things that continue to show up from players like Kylie Feuerbach, who has 2 points in the game, yet her on-ball defense and what we've seen going back to the USC game, how her confidence has grown. She's always been a pretty good defender. It has just gone to another level. Taylor McCabe, got to mention her last night and what she was able to do. Just ready to go, ready to fire, and 2 different times. Once was in the third quarter when both teams were really struggling. I think it was about a 7-point game, if memory serves the time, 6-point game, something like that. Both teams were struggling offensively. McCabe hit a big one. Same thing in the fourth quarter. Iowa, a little bit of a lull. Boom, there's McCabe, and basically put the game away with her 3-pointer that made it a 15-point game. McCabe, we know she is an elite offensive player, and she's okay on the defensive end of the floor. You got Feuerbach, a Fulter, what she gives you time in and time out. And now, as they've moved away from Hannah Stolke playing at the 4 and trying to play 2 posts together, it just didn't work. Hannah Stolke back at the 5, we've seen her game grow, even as she struggled last night. But then you throw in the fact of what we saw from O'Grady, what we've seen from her at different times, and then last night, Ava Hyde. So you got 3 different weapons that you can go in the post. We know what Guyton's going to give you off the bench. The 2 other freshmen, Stremlo and Mulaney, are both really fun to watch, and their upside is going to be immense. I mean, this team is just clicking. They're putting it together, and it's the defensive end of the floor that makes me believe that they can make a push, that they can continue. One final thing. We don't complain. Try not to complain about officials, but woo, Iowa for about a 10, 12-minute stretch last night. Talk about getting a bad whistle. Good God. That was brutal, but didn't matter in the end, and that's a good thing as Iowa runs away from the Huskers, gets a little redemption, a little payback, 81-66. They get the victory in that one, and now they will head back home and welcome in Rutgers. That'll be a 6:30 tip-off coming up on Thursday evening. We continue Locked On Hawkeyes. As good as things are going for the women's basketball team, they're not going as well for the men's basketball team. John Bohnenkamp was in attendance over the weekend at Carver Hawkeye Arena watching the Iowa men fall to Wisconsin. What's going wrong? What's up with this squad? And what does the future look like with Fran McCaffrey? We'll talk about that with John Bohnenkamp coming up here. And we got some wrestling conversation also coming up. A big wrestling day for you wrestling fans out there. You want to stay there with all the details. Talking Iowa men's hoops when we come back, and Cooper DeJean in the Super Bowl as we continue. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering, refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, WayFair has everything you need, all within your budget. I'm looking for a little furniture down here in the man cave. Had these couches down here for a while. Their huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and my budget. My favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items. Wayfair's site was so easy to navigate. I found everything I needed in no time at all. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or your budget. Wayfair can help you out with your home stylings. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's wayfair.com. WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home.
John Bohnenkamp joins us. Hello, John. Trent and Ken. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good. Well, let's get into what you saw on Saturday. On Saturday noon tip, you were at Carver along with what it looked like a pretty good crowd, John, of the men's games you've covered this year. As big a crowd as you've seen?
It was right up there with the Iowa State game.
Sure.
I mean, I think, and I mean, that was what was comparable. And trust me, I love noon games on Saturday. I mean, that's the way it should always be. But, I mean, it did kind of have that old school Big Ten feel, you know. I mean, again, talk about things you were used to, you know, when you were growing up. It was always, you know, an afternoon Saturday game in the Big Ten. So that's what kind of reminded me of it. It was a really good crowd. I mean, there were a few empty seats here and there, but in my mind, it was right up there with the Iowa State crowd.
And plenty of red in the stands, too, which helps push it up. But it was a good crowd on hand. Iowa, for the second straight game, they played well for the way they're currently constructed. It's just not good enough. And then those final last couple of minutes, it wasn't just that they got run out of the gym the last couple of minutes. You could see the offense wasn't there. Peyton Sanford really struggled throughout the course of the game. And
I thought it was his brother's best game, by the way.
Yeah, and Price was great. I mean, he was great in the first half and good overall for the game. Is it just as simple as that? They don't have the horses to beat even the top level teams in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was, and I wrote about this on Saturday. It's the same sort of deal as the Tuesday game against Purdue. I mean, they're down 3 with a couple minutes to go, you know, and with the ball. And the other day they were out 1 with about 7 minutes to go. And, you know, it's like I wrote, I said, this is a good team with a lot of good players, but it just seems like they're missing that one piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Owen Freeman's gone, and that doesn't help at all. And it really didn't help on Saturday, but even with him there, it still always felt like they just needed that one guy, you know, to have a big game. And, you know, and to close that game out, and in both situations, they put themselves in the position to win, and they just couldn't finish it off.
No,
and I think that's the hand that they're dealt now, and they're just going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on that. And you, as you pointed out, in your piece at IowaCollegeHoops.com, and Fran McCaffrey said at the press conference, you were quoting him. It's just from the bigs, the offense is in there. They're playing okay. Their assignments, they're getting their assignments, but they just, Owen Freeman's going to score the ball, and he's obviously he's missed in that aspect.
Yeah, and I mean, Riley Mulvey has done good things.
Yeah.
Evan Braun's has done good things. Lodgy Dembele has done, but they're not Owen Freeman.
Right.
And they're not that guy that you can go to with, I go back to the Purdue game when it's 82-79. They're not that guy you can go to get you a basket that cuts the game in one, or maybe you get an end one out of it. You're missing that guy. And, and Peyton Sanford is doing what he can. I mean, I don't think, he obviously hasn't been healthy. I think he's been beat up pretty bit, and he's getting grabbed quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's just facing a lot of physical basketball right now. So he can't be that guy, because I think he gets worn out with about 3 minutes to go. And so like I said, they get to that position, but they just don't have that guy that can close the game out. Drew Thelwell could have been that guy maybe on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets hurt with 5 minutes to go. And I
was surprised he came back.
I was shocked when the way he went out. I was like, you start thinking in the back of my mind, this is another guy that may be gone for a while. Came back, gave him a couple minutes, immediately left again, was in a lot of pain. We'll find out tomorrow if he's available this week or not. And it just seems like they just can't get a break right now. And like I said, this is the hand they're dealt, and the hand's one card short.
This is for both of you, Trent. Sorry to interrupt. Because I know you were watching on TV, John, you were there. The over and back might have been as bad a call as I've seen. No, it didn't affect the game, right?
Yeah.
Wisconsin didn't win based on that. But, John, was it as bad in person as Trent and I saw on our televisions? How do you make that call?
I was watching the whole thing, and I was like, what did they call?
Right.
And then I see him, and I'm like, how? And then like you started seeing the replays on Twitter, and I was like, my God, that may be the worst over and back call I've ever seen. Because if you look, I can't even explain how bad it was.
Right.
And I really hope
you have to go over in order to go back.
Right.
I know exactly. The pass was made from the back court. Peyton Sanford landed in the front court, and they called over back. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I really hope somewhere, whether it's the Big Ten office or those guys, when they look at the film, I hope somebody said, that was really terrible. And because it was one of the worst things I've seen this year. It was so poorly called. And you're right, it didn't affect the game, but it just was one of those things like, you got to be kidding. Yeah. Oh.
It was the pass from Traore, and I want to go with Sadie with you. This rest of the season, I believe he has got to be an important component.
Yeah.
You got to see.
Absolutely.
Fran or whoever the next coach is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see enough that you believe he'll be a junior next year, that he can be a starter? Because he's a bit of a tweener. Not quite big enough as a 4. Yeah. Maybe not a good enough offensive player as a 3, at least right now.
How tall is he, Trent?
He's listed at 6'7". I don't think he's quite that. Yeah. Do you see enough that you believe he can be on a good team, not a team like this, but a Big Ten, top third contender type team, that he can be a starter, or is he more of a role player?
He could be a starter, but he's got to make shots.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see there's kind of a error. He has attempted some threes. You got to make those. You got to make a mid-range. You've got to have an offensive component to your game, and he's as athletic as they come. He can go get balls inside. He can rebound. If you add that offensive component, he becomes a really good player. But it's got to be a consistent component too, and that's where it's kind of right now. Otherwise, he's a 10 and 6 guy. 10.6 rebounds. He's starting on this team right now. I know everybody's all the time on social media. He's got to play and all that. He's giving them what he can give them right now. And I don't think you get much more out of it. I don't think you can squeeze much more out of that right now.
John, so obviously the comments got back to the locker room, and Iowa was going to play as well defensively, or attempt to anyways, as they possibly could. I thought they played well on the defensive for their standards, right? Because this is a team that put up 116 on them on that Friday night in early January. So that obviously was air quote bulletin board material, something that stuck with them, a talking point leading up to this game. Fair to say?
And I mean, Wisconsin shoots a lot of threes. I mean, if you look at it, if you look at that number, I don't know, I can't remember what they had the other day, but they put up a lot of threes. Those are going to go in sometimes. And some of them were contested. And then there were a couple of times where guys got lost on switches or closeouts or whatever. They got lost and guys got open, and you can't have that against a team like Wisconsin. It's a little different Wisconsin team. I mean, they played with a little more tempo on Saturday, and they really kind of ran things. I mean, they were a little faster, but they also controlled everything. And it's a pretty good team. I mean, this is the first time I really got a good look at them. And they're a nice team, and they shoot the ball well. But you're right. I thought Iowa played as well as they could defensively, other than some slip-ups here and there, but those are going to happen.
Yeah, Tonje's going to get his.
Yes, he is.
Oh, my God.
He knows how to get to the rim and knock down an open shot. That's a pretty good offensive skill set to have. When you look,
or get to the free throw line.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to see Purdue last week, Wisconsin over the weekend. Haven't seen Sparty yet, but see most everybody extended time. Do you see an Elite Eight team in the Big Ten?
No.
Yeah.
I got one, boys.
Maybe Michigan State if they because it's just Izzo.
Yeah.
And when Izzo has good teams that listen to him somehow or another, they always figure it out.
Yep.
But and this one is, I think this team is listening to him, and it's a talented team, but outside of that, no. Illinois hasn't played well, and I thought they would be better than what they've been here in the last few weeks.
Maryland, boys. Maryland is the
Terps
answer
for you. Huh?
And that's the thing. I haven't seen them yet. We'll see them this weekend. That may be, again, but like I said, that way, whoever it's going to be, if one does make it, it is going to be a team that we don't think about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a surprise team because, like I said, there's a lot of good teams. There's not that elite team in my mind.
Yeah. I think what they are to the Big Ten, what Texas Tech is to the Big 12, kind of a middle of the pack. Although Texas Tech is starting to climb the standings
trending
quicker.
up. Yeah.
I wish they lose a couple as far as prices go down the road.
The Cooper DeJean story, we talked about it at the top of the show today. It really is. It's such a great story. It's something that Iowans as a whole, I think, can just cling on to. The small town kid shows up in Iowa City, never played cornerback before, now plays in his rookie year in the Super Bowl. Just an incredible story. And I know for people like you that covered him, nothing but great things to say about Cooper DeJean.
Super nice kid. I mean, really nice kid. The one that says sir, and one that and answers your questions honestly. And when I saw him yesterday walking in wearing his leather jacket, I'm like, this kid's got it. He figures it out. And then for him to do that yesterday, I just thought there's just cool people. He's one of them, and he deserved that game yesterday and to have that attention and spotlight on him. We're great kids.
Phenomenal day to burst onto the scene in some respects. Good stuff, John Bohnenkamp. Thanks for jumping on with us. Appreciate it. Associated Press, IowaCollegeHoops.com, and Hawkeye Nation. Thanks, John.
Have a good one.
Yep, good to talk to you.
Trent Condon back with you one final time. Locked On Hawkeyes. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. As we wrap things up, a lot of basketball conversation. For you wrestling fans, we got a big show coming up for you on tomorrow's program. We're going to be talking with Zach Sako from Locked On Nittany Lions. We're going to talk about Iowa Penn State, not about the duel a whole lot, but big picture stuff. After the commitment a week ago of Bo Bassett, what that means for Iowa wrestling going forward, what we're seeing and what David Taylor's doing down at Oklahoma State. We're going to get into that as well. So more of a big picture, kind of a look towards the future for Iowa wrestling. That's coming up, a little bonus edition coming your way. Throughout the course of the week, we talked about the Iowa women. They get Rutgers coming up on Thursday night, that one back at Carver Hawkeye Arena. For the Iowa men, the losing streak continues. It is now 6 out of 7, 3 consecutive losses for the Hawkeye men. And now, is it playing out the string? It kind of is. As we talked about with John Bohnenkamp there, I want to see Seydou Traore, see what he can do and just keep giving him the minutes. So I was a projected 4-point underdog against Rutgers. This is still a winnable game, But remember also when you look at these metrics and kind of the baked in things, those numbers also include Owen Freeman. So Iowa's probably going to be a tick higher than that as an underdog. They welcome in, then they have Maryland after that on the weekend, on Sunday. They're a 12-point underdog in that one. They're a 1-point dog against Oregon. The only game they're favored the rest of the way is against Washington. And then those final four at Illinois, at Northwestern, home for Michigan State, at Nebraska. I think it's a better chance than not that Iowa misses the Big Ten tournament. And then we just wonder about this program. So a quick peek, though, to Wednesday night and what we're going to see tomorrow evening. The Rutgers defense has not been great this year. Iowa should be able to score, should be able to put up points in this one. One area that they've really struggled is on 2-point defense. There's going to be one where guys are going to be able to get to the rim. And we're going to see that driving ability. And that's where maybe a Seydou Traore can get going a little bit. Can we see some kind of offensive flow? That's what you're going to see on that side. Now, Rutgers has two tremendous players. They're one-and-doners. They're going to be lottery picks, and Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. Both those guys are studs. Bailey, 6'10", plays inside, plays outside. Harper, smooth with the ball, a really talented offensive player. Both these guys are really good offensive players. The rest of the parts, though, are not very good. And that's what you get with this Rutgers squad. Look, win, lose, or draw, it's not going to change anything for this Iowa team. It's not going to suddenly put them on the bubble if they go and get a road victory against Rutgers. It would be nice to be able to do something on the road, but that's the other part of this team, even with Owen Freeman. It's just been so terrible on the road. It's very difficult to think of a way that I was going to be able to win this basketball game. Crazy things happen. It's a Big Ten, and this is not a great Rutgers team by any means. This is not, the Rutgers teams, some of them that we've seen recently that have been NCAA tournament teams. That is not the case here under Steve Pickle. Iowa, keep playing the young guys, see what you got going forward, and we'll see. Is what you wonder about Iowa basketball. We talked about Darren DeVries. Interest, I continue to hear, is there. But as I will look at it financially, that they're going to be able to pull this off. Do they see renovating Carver Hawkeye Arena, really investing in men's basketball, is at the forefront of this new age of college athletics? And with not just NIL, but the way the rosters are going to be set, the way that athletes are going to be paid, there's a finite amount of money. And because of that, there are going to be times where I was going to have to pick and choose what they're going to invest in. We know they're going to invest in football. You have to. You know they're investing in women's basketball. We know they're investing in wrestling. And those are two winter sports. Is Iowa going to do the financial part? Is Beth Getz going to do the financial part to get Iowa back to the level we want to see? Or is it as simple as got a good recruiting class next year? It's been a down year. They've had some injuries. You can pile up the excuses and you bring Fran back for another year. That's not for me to determine. I know where I would be. That's up to Beth Getz. And we saw what happened with the Brian Ferentz situation in firing the coach's son and the offensive coordinator in season, let him finish out the string. We saw that happen. That was different circumstances. And that was also football. And there was pressure, not just from the athletic department chair and Beth Getz, but also outside influences. And President Wilson was involved. Regents, conversations about that. There was a lot more to it than just that. And because of the apathy that has hit men's basketball for a huge, huge portion of the fan base, you wonder if people, they're already checked out. Can you get them back? And that is the equation that Beth Getz needs to figure out. Thanks for being with us today and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're with you each and every weekday talking the world of Hawkeye athletics. Rapid reaction podcast after wins, losses. We got you covered on that front and a whole lot more. Again, tomorrow, big wrestling show for you wrestling fans out there. We got you covered and looking at the future of Iowa wrestling as they match up with Penn State, Oklahoma State in the future. Thanks for being with us. Don't forget, we got Locked On Big Ten. Craig Sheeman doing great work over there. Plus, your favorite team, your favorite baseball team, pitchers and catchers getting ready to report. The NFL offseason is here. Whatever your favorite team is, they have you covered. NBA, NHL as well, all here on the Locked On Network. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until then, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Go Hawks.